Hey everyone, welcome back. For today's Q&A, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're not going to take a submitted question and answer it live. We're going to do a little bit of a shift. So I was actually at an incredible experience this past week, and I'm going to share about that with you. And some of the questions you may have, I'm going to try to answer them preemptively in here. And there's some great nuggets in here that I am beyond excited to share the reflections and the key takeaways of Tony Robbins' Unleash the Power Within event. So, if you've never been to a Tony Robbins seminar or you're curious about what happens and how it can change your life, stay tuned. Where I'm going to walk you through my experience on it. So, this was a 4-day immersive experience, and it was honestly packed with deep transformational moments for me, actionable strategies, and some breakthroughs that I can't wait to share with you. Plus, I'll be giving you tips on how I'm starting to apply these lessons moving forward and how you can too. That's the whole point of this is you're going to get benefits from this too. It's not just about me. Otherwise, I could just talk to myself. So, this was my first official event with Tony Robbins. I had signed up and participated in the Time to Rise Summit, I think in the end of January, just a few months ago. And that was, I think that was 3 or 4 days, I don't even remember. It was kind of last minute. I wasn't exactly planning on attending it. It was a free thing that popped up on my YouTube, and I thought, "You know what? It's free. I don't have to put any money in it because I don't have the budget for it right now. I might as well do it." So I participated in that amid a really busy point in my life. So I listened to the replays and man, it was gold. It pumped me up so much. It helped me shift my mindset and just get me encouraged, which was really helpful in a time where it could have been easy to burn out. From that experience, the next option was to participate in the Unleash the Power Within event, which just happened in March. If you're listening to this in the future, it's March of 2025. And it was, I think, a 6-week difference or so. So I had just enough time to reschedule, reprioritize my life for this. And the other thing that I do have to shout out and mention was that I was gifted the ticket by a generous soul I had never even met before. And he saw it in me, invested in me. He saw enough worth investing in me to give me a ticket. And he had opened it up, and I was just one of many who expressed interest, but I was picked for that. And that in itself I've been riding high on that since then. It was incredible because financially, I'm not in the position right now where I could have done this on my own. So I just want to call that out and express gratitude, immense gratitude for that first. I'll go more in depth about that experience in a separate video. So, I want to start with the big question as we shift completely into the Unleash Your Power Within event. So, I had never even really had much experience with Tony Robbins before or his team. I had heard videos, I had seen little clips here and there, of course. I don't know how anyone cannot hear of him in some capacity these days, but I never from what I saw in the clips, it just didn't seem like it was my thing. Like, I was a little curious, but not enough to take the plunge. So the free event was really helpful for me to get a good feel for that in a safe way, without having to fully commit. But this experience, I was really ready for it, I think in every single way. So that made it better first. And I think going back with the big question, do I feel transformed after attending this event? I was ready, needing this transformation. So that was my goal. I was not going to leave there without a transformation. So I first want to preface it with that. I didn't go into it halfway. I went all in and then some, knowing that I am going to get my transformation out of this. So, yes and no. And I know that sounds a little bit weird, Like, shouldn't it be a definitive yes or no? Not really. So here's the thing. Any transformation doesn't completely happen overnight. What this event actually gave me was the tools and clarity to stay on that path of transformation. It pushed me over the edge to finally give myself permission to follow through on what I already knew deep down I needed to do in my life. And I did experience some amazing breakthroughs, which I'll go into more in just a little bit. But I did receive transformations. I did receive breakthroughs that led to transformations. The key is how I implement it. Implementation is a huge factor of that. So it's not enough to just attend one event and think everything's going to change. There are multiple steps to the transformation process. But did I get enough to fill me up that I can implement it? Did I get the clarity I needed? Did I get the strategies, the reminders, the support, tools, etc.? Yes, absolutely. Okay. So maybe you've felt this way too, that you need permission to follow through on what you already know deep down that you need to do in life. Like there's something holding you back, even when you know the steps. And for me, that was the wake up call I needed. That was where I was too. Like, I was really amazed that so much of the content in there was stuff I was already pretty much doing in different forms. But this just kind of brought it all together and that permission for myself to go, okay, if I keep hearing this over and over and over again, yes, I do need to do this for myself. It's easy to help others do this. As you probably know, self-care and taking true care of ourselves, putting ourselves first, making ourselves a priority can be such a resistance for so many of us, myself included. I know. That's why I talk about it so much because I need it. I'm my worst and best client. So, the key here with this event, which is what I understood going into it, I'm not sure if a whole lot of other people understood what the main focus was about, but immersion was the key to this. And I love that they facilitated 4 days that were intense and long and challenging in a lot of different ways, but to facilitate this safe place to immerse ourselves in the environment we needed to be in to stay in a state of holistic healing and wellness. They have maybe other terms for that, unleashing the power within. But for me, I see every bit of it as helping towards my holistic health and wellness. And part of that was tapping into that power inside of me and being able to unleash it, which I did. It was so amazing and beautiful. So I think one of the biggest things that I personally realized, and I think was, if I can say that, I think it was the missing key, is the power of immersion. Spending 4 full intense days focused entirely on my growth in a community of other people intent on their growth, it made me show up differently. And it was there when I started losing steam, it was there to remind me, oh, we've got another day of this. I'm not going to lose steam. It's going to help me get back up. I'm not going to lose steam. I'm going to get back up. That was invaluable. There is no price tag on that. There is no word that can adequately describe the importance of that for me personally. And yes, I already knew pretty much all of these things. Maybe I heard things in different ways or a different pattern or all at once rather than spread out. There were some variables, of course, but the bulk of it, I already knew these things. And I'm pretty sure you do too. The difference was being in this beautiful place where I was held, I was supported, they understood what I was going through. They understood the limiting beliefs that were coming up. They didn't need to know the details. They understood the feelings attached to it. They understood the physical challenges, the lethargy, um, and the resistance that we have doing anything new. And that's why we stay in the states we are in. So to be in a place like that for the first time in my life that was truly intent on my growth was incredible. This is what I'd been looking for a very, very long time and not getting in this capacity. So The immersion part of that too helped me to realize that if I can block off a whole week for this, which was 4 days, I blocked off a bit of time before that to help me prepare. And then I blocked off the entire rest of the week. So this is actually the only thing I'm doing this week work-wise is sharing my thoughts and reflecting. I knew myself well enough that I would need a lot more time after to work through any emotional things that were coming up, to work through any other limiting beliefs that were coming up and really process this fully to as maximum of an extent as I possibly could, as well as having time to really reflect and write down the takeaways from this. And hopefully you benefit from this too. Um, so I took a week off work for that, and I have never done that since I started. Honestly, I have never taken an actual vacation. I've never taken just time off to really nourish myself. I only did it last year when I was forced to because my body was shutting down on me in like every way. So, what that taught me was if I can block off a whole week for this, what's stopping me from creating a smaller immersion experience for myself regularly? Ouch. This really inspired me to rethink how I structure my weeks, that I don't have to wait once a year, twice a year for something super, super intense and insane that takes so much out of me. I will still do more of these, but why can't I take that out for myself? Because I knew I needed it. I know I need this more regularly and to immerse myself in this state to better create. That's kind of a cool catchphrase, isn't it? I need to immerse myself in this state in order to create. And that's part of mindset work. But for me, and I think most people can relate to this, it's not enough to do 2 hours of this one weekend or one day a week, one day a month, because life is going to come at you as soon as you step out that door. Your kids are going to be there, your responsibilities, the bills, all of the things are going to be there for you. And that's actually what you're immersed in. So the more you can immerse yourself into this state where you know you need to be, the better it's going to be for you. And you don't have to wait for events like this. You can put it into your daily schedule, and maybe not every single day, but in your weeks. So that's the biggest thing that shifted for me schedule wise was I'm restructuring how I do my weeks and weekends. My weekends, I'm no longer working 6 days a week and then waiting for my clock to tick down on Sabbath to go back to work. I'm shifting that to kind of give myself mini immersion experiences. So, really taking the time off. I really wasn't on social media, only the bare minimum um, for the most important priority communications with business wise, but I wasn't scrolling through social media. I was trying to do everything I could to stay in that state, and I didn't do business, which made me chafe and itch. Like I had, like that was like an addiction. I realized too. It's necessary and important, but I think that's one of the things too is when you pull yourself away, it is like detoxing. So you really start to see what you're addicted to. For me, it's work. There's a lot of things, a lot of benefits and needed things attached to that, but I don't know how to not work. I'm learning. Um, and that also triggers my limiting beliefs. So that's taking that a little bit further to help you if you start identifying any of that in you, whatever you pull away from and detox from, even for a weekend, and you start going back to it, probably for most people it's social media, that's where you're going to figure out what your addictions are. And then beneath that, what is the limiting belief attached to that? What is the real root of that addiction? And it's going to be different for everyone. I'm just going to share mine. My I, I've uncovered this recently, and probably within the past year. I realized that I do have an addiction to work, to busyness, to being busy, to filling my schedule. Not saying I don't have a ton of stuff to do and a lot of responsibilities and a lot that I'm juggling, but it's performance based. We can have a tendency, sometimes people, even well meaning parents or relations around us, can have a tendency to put the emphasis on good job rather than I'm so proud of your effort. And it conditions us to feel like we have to perform or we're not good enough. And for me, another aspect of it was I have been conditioned by the loudest, most prominent voices and people in my life that love was conditional. I got treated better when I made people happy or I served them in the way that they wanted, if I told them what they wanted to hear. So it wasn't always even about making them happy, but serving them in the way that they wanted or needed at that given time, which is a whole crazy thing in itself. Obviously, I've never felt good enough, and that's one of my key things that links up to that. It's like those connector sets that they all connect together, these pieces. And performance is absolutely one of those things. I realize that, yes, I'm a giver. Yes, I'm a doer naturally. And this is what people may call people pleasing. That's actually not a good thing. That's actually a toxic trait. That's a whole different thing we can go into. But that's what I struggle with the most, detoxing and immersing myself into things. The work I need to do is working. If I'm not working, then what purpose do I have? I'm not fully there yet. I haven't completed that journey yet, but that's my limiting belief I'm sharing with you, and also the process for how you can uncover it in yourself. I know, be brave, it's okay. We all have these. Your addiction will tell you what the limiting belief is. And if you can follow that journey, you're going to figure out the other connecting pieces to it and start to really break free from this stuff. All right. So moving forward with that, there's so much more I can talk about it. So creating balance is really the biggest shift for me that I have to focus on. That's one of my biggest weak points. And I'm pretty sure, pretty confident that that's going to be what you are struggling with as well, is creating balance in your life. And maybe you're feeling the same thing of work, 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 work. And there's a lot we can look into and with that and unpack at another time, because sometimes you may not have the main issues that I do with work connected to purpose and value, but a lot of people do. Another can be you're working, but you're not actually being as effective as you can be. You're not actually focusing on the right things you need to be moving the needle forward. So, what do you need to do for balance in your life? I'm sure you're already coming up with a lot of stuff. So, the next piece of this, going back to the immersion experience, was it was absolutely insane and amazing, the feeling of being even in a virtual room with so many people. It was electric. Honestly, I think that was one of the biggest breakthroughs connected to that, was me realizing how desperately I had been craving connection with people who got me, who were wanting to change, who were vulnerable, who were ready to grow, not make excuses. And excuses can still come up, but we push through them to the other side. And for me, it was so powerful to be around so many more voices and beautiful souls who were pushing past excuses and limitations and just making it happen and seeing their breakthroughs. It's such a beautiful thing. So, the people who aim higher, who think bigger, and are truly committed to making the world a better place, there were so many people like that in there. And it's kind of like I unlocked a piece of my identity I didn't realize was missing. I have been taught, indirectly throughout my life, to be very self sufficient, to trust only in myself, which is not that great because I fail myself all the time in different ways. But I have been taught that at the end of the day, you've only got yourself to count on and lean on for support. Don't expect a white knight to come in and rescue you. It ain't going to happen. You're probably going to have to wind up rescuing him if he does come. And just all these different things I've learned in my life. And unfortunately, if there's so much of that, it can create an imbalance. And that's one of my struggles now, is learning to open myself up to other people. which you can't heal and grow if you're not open and really connecting to receive from others and their beauty and the gifts that they have to offer. So I'm going to throw that out there. I'm sure no one else but me is dealing with that. So, I think how much I really need to be in the room with other people like that was huge. And not just to have fun, not just I don't gossip, but to talk about different things like that, but really focused on building a better world, creating, dreaming, having fun, playing around with like hobbies and that childlike state. So, so important, which confirms the path I'm on, trying to build and create all of this for you all. So, next, we're going to go into some of my key breakthroughs. And yes, there are already quite a few, but these are some of the biggest things for me. So, there were so many, but I'm just going to highlight the biggest ones that really helped shift my mindset. And I really would love to know if any of these resonate with you too. So, first is time and prioritization. So, I already mentioned a bit about my schedule. And that was the first realization I had was about the time. I was sitting there like the first bit going, oh my goodness. I keep saying I don't have time, but it's really like, if I can rearrange my entire schedule and dedicate this week to make myself a priority for once, because I had a bigger purpose to that than myself, then why don't I do it more often? And I learned that I can make time for myself if I intentionally structure it. It took the whole 6 weeks to be able to orchestrate, and I worked my butt off to make up for this time off. And I think that was the key too. I actually need to give myself more time to make more time. So that was one of the things that was missing for me too. I have to really plan it out. And that way it's not so overwhelming leading up to it as well. I can take this week, 2 weeks, and break it apart over a few weeks, a 6 week period, whatever, and then give myself this beautiful time to nurture myself. And of course, that made me rethink the weekends, like I said, but also how I show up the rest of the week. So, my new plan is to dedicate time to reflection and growth over the weekends and then hit the ground running with implementation during the week. So, weekends are now for reflection and growth and kind of tidying up that inner work, reassessing and making sure I'm replenished and really strong for the week ahead of me, and then hitting the ground running with full on implementation. So, weekend to kind of review and recap as well on how the implementation went and restructure that a bit. And that, like, I'd already had that in my head, but I didn't really have the drive behind it before. So, that's a huge shift for me. The next one was surprising for me. I wasn't expecting this to come through, and that's probably why it's a breakthrough. But one of the limiting beliefs that came up for me that it was just so ingrained in me, I didn't even realize. But this one hit deep for me in a very different way. So for years, I have felt the looming pressure of age, of running out of time, especially as I'm approaching 40. That's even more prevalent. And I know for a lot of people who are older, they may be thinking, you're still young. That's not how I view it. I know I only have a limited amount of time in my sandglass, my timer, and that's what it's been like for me pretty much my whole life, especially as I'm getting closer to 40. I'm going, oh my goodness, what have I actually done in this time? And it's kind of like there's that voice in the back of my head saying, you are running out of time. And that's so much pressure that I've been dealing with. And another reason why busyness, being busy working, is one of my biggest drives. The underlying, another branch off of that is that I do feel like I'm running out of time or wasting my time or not doing enough. So there was an incredible speaker on day 3, the end of day 3, John Durham Boss. If you haven't heard of him, I encourage you to go look him up right now. Well, like after the video. John Durham Boss. I had not really cried up till that point, but that broke me. I didn't even cry during my own limiting beliefs, but I was bawling with his story. And there was so much about that that just like broke me and cracked me wide open and helped the icky stuff come out and allowed me to heal. It was really incredible. His whole story was incredible, but then what happened to me because of hearing his story, it, oh, amazing. So it helped me to see that every perceived setback in life is really just a set up for success. And I realized that where I've been is preparing me for where I'm going. So, I mean, in one way, I kind of knew that, but there's a whole difference in having everything line up and be powerful all at once. And getting to see his story was just incredible. And I realized that I've got 27 years to do to get to where Tony Robbins currently is. That's still actually a lot of time. So, my goal now is to do 10x what he's currently doing by the time I'm his age now, which he's like 64, 65. So that's about 27 years for me. And when I look at it in that perspective, it's like I actually still have plenty of time to build up to get there, as well as looking at John's story, where he didn't really get to that point until a little bit later in life, and looking at how he started his life and then what that timeline is. So I was able to look at it and go, okay, and I think this goes back to what we're kind of taught in Western culture. I don't know about all the other cultures. I can only speak on my culture, which is Western culture, that we are so conditioned from such an early age. What are you going to do with your life? What are you going to do with your life? Where are you going to go to college? What are you going to do? And we're asked these things from such a young age. And the emphasis is on going to college to get a career, to be successful. So success is related to college and career. And that's pretty much a given that by the time you're 40, everything goes downhill. That you should be having your sweetest life at the age of 40. How many people actually get that? I don't know anyone who really does on the average. If it were really what it is, more people would be having their sweet spot by 40 instead of going downhill from there. It's really all backwards when you take a step to look at it, because if you really had the success that whoever they is, but that is fed to us, then there would be no going downhill at 40. We would just be kind of at least maintaining or going up. And that isn't accurate, which I'm understanding the more I get to 40 and seeing my generation really, really struggling because we were fed that lie. So that cracked that sucker wide open for me, as well as the beauty of getting to see people who are older that are not decrepit, that are not, and I say this because that's kind of what I've been taught. And I see it in different people who don't take care of themselves. They do start going downhill. I get that. But to be able to see the other side of that, people who look younger than older, who are happy and joyful and have more energy than I do, who are springing out of bed, who are jumping around, so the age thing is such a limiting belief anyway. There's so much more to that, but it's such crap. And I think that was really important for me to see the older folks as well as people around my age who are still hitting the ground running, so I don't feel like everything's about to end. I have just a few years left or this window is closing. I have all the time in the world. I have all the time left to do whatever I need to do. And if I look back, just like with what I've seen with John's story, and then the next day watching Trent Shelton's video, was God is setting everything up again. He really is setting up my life for success to do what he's called me to do. I don't need to worry about it, because if he's hinting at me things that I need to be doing, I need to fully trust him that like, and this is the other piece, that everything I've perceived as a setback has actually been a way to propel me forward or teach me the things or show me the weak spots or strengthen me in different ways to set me up for success if I receive it, if I work through it, if I learn the lesson and apply it and implement it. So time isn't against me, it's on my side. That was huge. And I'm going to stop there because I could go on and on. So, this is kind of piggybacking off of the others, especially the one about scheduling and time, but health and self care. So, for the first time in my life, I fully feel I feel like I have permission to prioritize me. And I know logically that self care matters, but this time I was told over and over and over and over again until it really sank in, until I got it. Because when all of these people, these leaders who are world renowned and are getting paid a ton of money to do what they do, are prioritizing self care in their life, and I'm watching it demonstrated, oh my goodness, that seeing that demonstrated showed me that if they're doing that, I need to be doing that too. So being able to see the model, not just hear about it, but get to watch it out too was absolutely incredible. So one aspect of that was Tony Robbins being able to leverage and delegate. So he wasn't there the whole time leading it all, and he had to rest his voice. So he was able to rest and leverage it with his team, especially he mentioned as he was getting older, he wants to kind of safeguard, so if something happens to him that it doesn't just all fall apart. And man, that was such a good lesson for me, not just in business, but in life. And that if he's getting away with taking care of himself, but still serving and creating this really powerful experience, then there's just no reason I can't do that myself. I don't have to do everything. I don't have to do the tech or the setup or the tear down or teach every second of everything or do every single thing myself. And I still can get the benefit of my name being on it and, you know, helping people in my way and whatever, because I'm really the facilitator. And he was there doing the work for sure, but he facilitated it. And that's what I put into myself, not just for my business. That was really, really powerful and huge, but also for my family, for my daily life, for how I show up every single day behind the scenes. I don't have to do it all to still care for everyone. Huge. Marinate on that one a bit, huh? So, the other aspect to that, which I'll shorten this and not go super into detail, but was also listening to my body and then immediately acting on my needs consistently without guilt or apology. I realized how easy and simple it was to do that, to care for myself, that I had not been doing this. I've been consistently ignoring my needs. If I'm hungry, I push through it. If I'm working and focused on something, I don't even go to the bathroom or have a water break. I have to schedule alarms for this stuff. Literally, I have to schedule an alarm to eat at each meal so I don't rush past it. And I have to schedule to take care of myself. So this shift for me was, you know what? If I just listen to myself and quit ignoring that signal, it's like snoozing that alarm. Instead of snoozing my body alarm, trying to tell me what it needs, I just immediately go give it what it needs. Absolutely incredible, super simple. And it's one of those like, you know, but I know I'm not alone in this. That's why this is primarily one of the biggest things I work with my clients on, is trying to get them to take better care of themselves. And I know for me too, it's that challenging for myself as well. So the other part of that was I was able to do this for myself and my kids were okay. And the world didn't stop. My clients didn't hate me for it, or my business didn't fall apart. And I'm actually better now for everyone when I'm better for me, when I show up for me, when I did this for myself, everyone else by osmosis is getting the benefits of it. Oh, that was a big one too. All right. So then this one, I kind of refer to it as the untapped inner power. this was really unleashing that power within. And it was that culmination of things. This happened on the first night. Holy moly. So this one also brought me to tears in a different way. It was, well, I'll share with you. In-person events, which you may have heard about with Tony Robbins, but it's the fire walking. And the virtual event was breaking a board. And it wasn't just a board for me. This was one of the things I was actually most excited about. It ties back to when I was a kid, about 7, 8, and I was brought up in a culture that did not really value women's strength. And I'm not going to get to it in detail with it, but I was treated differently than my brother. There was one female, me, and then my brother, who was a male, obviously. And there was a stark contrast to how we were treated. And very short and simply, he got to go out and be muddy and do sports and do all of these different things. And I was kept very tidy and quiet and clean and treated as fragile. And I so desperately wanted to get into martial arts as a kid, as well as soccer. And I was told that I couldn't because that parental figure, was afraid I would get hurt. Totally okay for my brother to do that stuff. Not okay for me to do that. And we could logically go into that. Well, isn't martial arts the best place to be then? Because it's learning how to use your body as self-defense and to strengthen up and get your own power. And it's not trying to knock this person or put this person up front at all, but the limiting beliefs that I realized were there as I was facing this board connected the dots for me too, that all my life, other people's limiting beliefs had held me back and kept me small and ingrained in me so much that those became my limiting beliefs. Crazy, right? And I think that's where a lot of us get our limiting beliefs from, are whether it's well-meaning or not well-meaning, but people who haven't done their own inner work themselves, so they put their limiting beliefs on other people around them. And that was absolutely for me. I could look back in this specific person and different people on that vein. Every time I was trying to grow into my own power, I had this like flashback. It was like that life or death moment. I looked back every single moment. I got up the courage, I got up the energy, I was determined. It was those people who would hold me back and keep me small. They would spew their limiting beliefs on me and tell me every reason it wasn't possible or it was stupid or whatever else. There's a lot more I could go into on that, and that may be for another time and place. But what that did to me was terrible, but it's my responsibility now. The next chapter of my life, they were only in it for a short period because I don't let those toxic voices in my life anymore. So now it's all on me, and I have to do the work to get through that and go, it isn't about them anymore if I continue on, especially now that I know. So that was it. I started feeling really sick and run down that first night. I had been going off of lack of sleep trying to get ready for this event where I knew I wasn't going to sleep as much, which there's a lot of tweaks I need to make, by the way. I'm not condoning that. So I was starting to feel run down and I started dropping because I was looking forward to that all night. And as it went on, it was like 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, and it had started at like 9 that morning. And I was going, I don't know if I can do this. Maybe I'll just sleep and feel better and do this in the morning. But something happened as I was having those flashback moments. The realization was like, no, I've been held back my whole life every time I wanted to do something. I'm not going to be the one to hold back now. Forget if I'm feeling whatever, it doesn't matter. So something just grew inside of me. I just walked past it and I walked back again and I just stared at that board. And it wasn't even on the ideal um, setting. It was on an uneven end table. I don't recommend doing this. Um, but I just did it anyway. And it's like, you know what? The worst that can happen is I just have to try again. Not a big deal. It doesn't work. Not a big deal. But at least I've tried. So I did that. And I knew how to stand in the stance, by the way. I didn't just recklessly do it. I understood the state I was supposed to get in, the stance and everything. And I just whacked that sucker. And I was going to have a video, but I didn't even want to wait to get the video set up. My youngest son was watching it, and the board broke with no problem. My hand was a little sore. I had to shake it out afterwards, but my goodness, none of that mattered compared to the feeling of breaking that board, and it was split clean. Actually, I'll show it to you right now. All right. So this is my board. Very clean, beautiful, lovely split. I hit that sucker with everything I had, and it was awesome. And what happened was remembering all the times throughout my life I was told I was too this, too that, not enough this, not enough that. All of those things came up at me, especially physically, especially being overweight my whole life, which is going to change. I'm already getting more fit. But every time I was going to do something, someone, their limiting beliefs, I allowed them to hold me back. Not anymore. So this board breaking, everyone else, this was me breaking everyone else's limiting beliefs on my life that I had allowed into my life. And that's done and over with. And I'm also getting very forceful around I'm very, very intolerant now of other people's limiting beliefs, hearing it, hearing them claim that over themselves. And definitely if they try to put that on me, no. So I don't get angry about a whole lot, but that stuff I'm starting to get angry about. And I think rightly so. Literally breaking through these limiting beliefs, this board, it was about reclaiming my personal power and refusing to shrink myself to make others comfortable. And it reminded me that no one can keep me small, even myself, unless I allow it. And I am absolutely done allowing it. And by making myself small to make others comfortable, I'm only enabling them to stay small. The best thing I can do as a parent and with anyone else, especially with clients, is to rise up and be a motivator to them to rise up also. No one heals or wins by you staying small. Okay. So from now on, I am absolutely walking forward in every area of my life with that fire, that power inside of me that is burning brighter than ever before. And this time, I've had it before in me. This time I'm not letting anyone come by me and rain on my parade. Not going to happen. So I hope this encourages you too to stop shrinking for anyone else. And also, of course, just be mindful of the words and limiting beliefs you may be putting on other people. Don't be someone else's cage. Help break free of your own so you can help others break free too. So, we went through a lot of the big breakthroughs, the key breakthroughs for me. Here are some of the key actions that I'm taking away and putting into play right now. And these are a few quick ones that might help you too. So, one is deciding to live in a beautiful state. The states, peak state, beautiful state versus that lower state was heavily emphasized and one of the most important takeaways I got as far as how to implement. So it was totally huge for me and understanding too that every day, no matter what happens, I'm deciding to live in a beautiful state. It's a choice. It's not always easy for sure, especially when there's a lot of things stacking up, but it is possible. And now I know how to get myself there in spite of everything else going on. That was incredible. And that was definitely a missing piece that I needed personally for how to make it stick and see it walked out. So the next piece of that, and actually these next steps kind of help to stay in the beautiful state, that's incorporating fun movement. So with what I do, part of the Nine Health Foundations is movement. But for me, it was really the emphasis on fun movement. And I know me, myself as well as many others, I'm definitely guilty of associating exercise with a chore, especially going back to my own limiting beliefs of always being the overweight one and being the slower one, being ridiculed in fitness environments, being the last one picked, all of those things. There's a lot of triggers there for me for sure. But this weekend taught me how powerful movement can be for your mood. I didn't really think about that before. I don't normally dance around a lot except when I'm alone, and I'm not normally alone. Um, but the physical movement, I understand power poses. I understand those ways of shifting your body to shift your mindset. But I didn't ever really associate dancing, jumping around, shaking it out, the fun aspects of it to really help move me forward into the peak state. So doing that was incredible because I was starting to get grumpy at times, of course, hangry and very tired. I had emotional things that were coming up and I was starting to get angry and agitated more. But the movement was incredible, and I felt so much better. Even just moving my body back and forth, not even jumping around or anything. Um, just being a little goofy was incredible. And it was really all about freedom rather than punishment. Exercise, especially I think if you grow up in the 90s and early 2000s like I did, there were all those infomercials and the people who were like really boot campy, drill sergeant-y. And so I always just associated exercise with like punishment, torture, and "You're stupid, you're lazy, blah, blah, blah." Like, every bit of it on the holistic level was a bad thing for me, and, being able to break through that and shift through that was incredible, and it's not about punishment at all. The movement is about true freedom and freedom to express what's inside of myself. So even if I'm limited or blocked in another area, I can choose freedom by just moving my body around and letting my body be free and expressing myself in that way that doesn't hurt anyone, but it only helps me. And I mean, how incredible is that? So I'm definitely bringing that energy into my daily life. I created a peak state playlist and I just really intentionally, I spent a lot of time on this actually. I intentionally went through different songs and made sure the beats were in alignment with the mood I wanted to be in peak state that I needed. And I picked ones that had inspirational lyrics. Some inspirational stuff can be really low and kind of sad and very emotional. I didn't choose those. That was a big shift for me too, was really keeping the frequency high, the energy, the beats high, so I don't fall into a depressive or like it's too easy for me to be depressed. And I was starting to see these blind spots I'd had that definitely the inspirational music, but just the upbeat music, getting into that was really key. So I encourage you to create your own peak playlist as well with the higher beats and things that really like energize you and pump you up. Huge. So the next part is priming, which is Tony Robbins' way of basically how I say mindset. To me, that's how I define mindset is what he calls priming. So priming is a mental reset. And I've introduced it into my mornings. And honestly, starting my day in peace from that clean perspective, being balanced starting out is a total game changer. And if you've never heard of it, priming includes a mix of breath work and gratitude, among other things, but that's the primary parts of it. And what it does is set you up for a day in control of your emotions and outcome instead of being reactive to life. I cannot encourage that highly enough. And that's what I'm going to be infusing as a non negotiable for myself and anyone else I work with from this point forward. It's that powerful. All right. So then the last main key point action step I want to talk about is immersion and mastery. So, immersion. If we want to grow in anything, we need full immersion, not just this half towing the line, going back and forth. If I feel like it, I'll do it. I'll do it one day and, oh, I forgot the next day. You know, really showing up full out is what's absolutely needed. And that is fully immersing yourself, myself, in the actions it takes to get the results I want, right? So that might be through events like Unleash the Power Within or simply going all in on whatever it is I'm focusing on for a specific time period. That was a huge thing for me too, is the power of not multitasking whole, right? And I think that's another cultural thing, maybe. or generational, I don't know, but especially as a woman, I'm pretty much I mean, it's ingrained in us, right? Especially if you're mothers, that you don't get to exist if you don't multitask. And it's almost rewarded like how much can you carry? And it seemed like that's the virtue is how much you can fill yourself with and carry. And like that's your badge or trophy. And it's such crap. We aren't wired to be multitaskers. That's actually, if you study the brain in any capacity, really, how we actually perform, we are not meant to be multitaskers. So by design, we're not meant to do all this stuff. So that was huge for me as well, going, oh, I know this, but I really need to apply it. So that was a big shift for me too, was just having it reiterated to me in this beautiful way and getting to immerse myself in the experience to really see, not just be told, but to really see the benefits for myself. And that, yes, this is a missing piece for sure. And that it is like you cannot be double minded or dabble in things and expect outstanding results that you're looking for. It doesn't happen. Try going on a treadmill 1 day a month, and that's all you do. "Oh, but I did the treadmill." No. So I think there's too many areas in our lives where it's so easy for us to make excuses and look at that little bit and just not have the reality check with us that, yeah, I think it is us, really. If you really look at it, we don't have anyone else as an excuse. We use people as excuses to blame shift away from our own selves, right? But I think the real reason we don't get the results we're looking for is because of us, because we don't fully commit, or we get distracted, or we multitask, we put ourselves to the back burner again. And that's really it. We all know the steps. And that's one of the things I personally am shifting, as well as now trying to help everyone as much as I can. And that's another shift for me too. And when I'm looking at how to fully commit and show up in my life, you don't have to wait to feel like it or everything to be aligned to fully show up and commit. You just do it. And then you'll fully show up and commit to your life. Um, this probably needs more in-depth training on that or to talk about a bit more. But that's the same thing too. Like I'm I like this new thing that's going around, being kind versus being nice. I really like that. That really resonated with me, and that's one of the things I am letting go of this from this weekend. Whether people may like it or not is not my issue. I know it's right. I know it's the best thing to do, that I'm breaking up with being nice. And what that means is I've accommodated many of my clients by being nice and understanding of their issues or things, as well as for myself. And this is where like there does have to be hard lines and expectations and boundaries and not being nice. It's okay to not be nice because nice doesn't really get you the results you're looking for. Kindness is a whole different thing, but you can also be forceful and set hard boundaries and still be kind. So, um, that was another big shift for me as well. Like that's part of that immersion and the only way to actually master something. Sometimes you just can't be nice. Nice doesn't get you where you actually need to go. It may be what you want, but not what you need. And those are definitely areas I noticed in myself and how I handle relationships. It's scary to put down those hard boundaries, to fully commit is what it is and say, this is the way it is, or, you know, but I know, and I think you know too, if you really think through it, that that's the only way you get growth and healing and you get to where you need to be. So, for what it's worth, I could keep talking on and on and on, but I'm going to wrap up and I'll leave you with this. So, I think that Unleash the Power Within reminded me that no matter where you are in life, whether you feel stuck, behind, unsure, there is totally untapped potential deep inside of you, buried underneath a lot of different things in life. And sometimes we just need the right space and tools to find it. For me, this weekend, it was like the excavator. It drilled right down into all that stuff and cracked it wide open And I was able to really just get straight to the issues. And really, it's the first time in my life I've dedicated this much time to myself in this capacity. That's really the biggest difference. I put myself as a priority, and wow. Also, seeing how simple it could have been all along if I would have just truly taken the time off. Now, I've had time off, mind you. I've had my kids go away for a little bit. I've had time, but what do I do with it? I fill it with busy work. And I say that because it's not that it's not good stuff, but it's not what I actually needed to get my breakthroughs because I was still, it's so easy to use tasks to shift away and procrastinate from taking care of ourselves, truly. And that's what I had been doing. So now I have the structure to do it. I can follow the itinerary and how things were done and repeat that for myself. So sometimes you just need to make that time for yourself too. No one else can free you or is going to free you but you. And that's the hard, cold, not so nice, but kind truth to you. And these breakthroughs I've shared are just the beginning of my personal breakthroughs, as well as I'm sure there's something that's resonated with you. That's just the start for you, too. I truly hope that this inspires you to reflect on your own life and all the different areas and what's truly holding you back. What limiting beliefs can you release? If you've been thinking about going to an event like this, and maybe it's your sign to start saying yes to yourself, to start making yourself a priority and fully commit to it. Because here's another thing, you can keep buying programs and supplements and coaches and mentorship and all these different things. None of them are going to change you. You have to change you. You can let them just sit there and not fully commit and show up for yourself and not do it consistently. And you know what the outcome is going to be. And you can sit there and blame the other person for it, or the coach wasn't the right thing for you, or this or that. But you know full well you didn't make it a priority. So that's my kind, loving call to action for you. Take that action for yourself. Where have you not been really fully committing to it? Because you know when your heart's really in it and when it isn't. And then look at it. What can you do about it? That's how you start tapping into your power, by committing to it and following it through. It's really that simple for something that is probably a little bit complicated, but you've got this. And I hope you and everyone else can experience what I'm now feeling and what I have experienced from this. Now, before you go, I would really love for you to leave me a comment below with what was the biggest breakthrough that you've had? What resonated for you from my breakthroughs and my experience? And if you like this and want to get more of this delivered to your to your channel, give it a thumbs up and hit subscribe because there's a lot more coming your way like this. It's going to be powerful, maybe not so nice, but it's definitely going to be kinder to you. So, thank you so much for being here for yourself. And I can't wait to see you step into your power too and unleash your power within. Stay tuned, and I wish you so much love and blessings on your journey.